So today's lesson is on length of a line segment. So when you're given a line segment, you're given the two coordinates of the endpoints. And from them, you can find the length of that line and even the midpoint, which we're going to be looking at tomorrow. Now, I hope you guys did the investigation. All I want to go over is the formula that you found. Okay, and that formula, if you're given 2 points, x1, y1, and x2, y2, the length is going to be the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. This should look really familiar. That x2 minus x1, y2 minus y1 should look like that portion of the slope formula. Okay, so if for some reason you were given the slope, you can always put the numerator and denominator in there and square them. So there is a connection between slope and length, just in the formula. Okay, and that's the formula we're going to use over and over again on the next page, and hopefully you did them in the investigation as well to get a little bit more familiar and a little bit more practice with it. Okay, so let's do some practice together. So for the formula, I'm just going to label x1, y1, just for the first one, x2, y2. Okay, and now distance between A, B. Okay, that's some notation you can use just to organize your thoughts later on. So in my first bracket, I have x2 minus x1, and then I'm going to put that in brackets, and I'm going to square it, plus y2, which is 1, minus y1, which is 3, all to the power of 2. Now, you can take as many steps as you want here. I'm going to go the longest way, just for the first one. So negative 4 minus 6 is negative 10. Make sure you put it in brackets. 1 minus 3 is negative 2. The reason it's important that you keep them in brackets is because any negative number to the power of 2 still becomes positive. So I do not want to see your next line, negative 100 plus negative 4, because that is incorrect. What we have, negative 10 squared is 100, positive. Negative 2 squared is 4. And when we add it, the distance between point A and B is the square root of 104. And if we really wanted to, we can turn it into a decimal, but in this case, it just says to leave it as a square root, okay, because it's not a perfect squared. Now, if you accidentally put negative 10 to the power of 2 as negative 100, you're going to end up with a negative number under your square root, which you cannot do. So that would be your first clue that you did something wrong. Okay, number 2. So again, distance between C and D equals, let's start with the x's, so negative 3 minus 5 squared plus the change in the y's, so 4 minus negative 2. Careful with those double negatives there because that might make a difference. Okay, negative 3 minus 5 is negative 8. If you want to square that right away to get 64, totally fine. I'm going to go the long way just to avoid confusion. And here, 4 minus negative 2 is 6, not 2. And now we can square both of our numbers. So 64 plus 36. And when we add those, we get the square root of 100, which in this case, we can actually take the square root to get 10. Okay, I want you to try number 3 and 4 on your own. Check with me to make sure you got the right answer, and then we're going to go to 5 and 6 as well. Okay, so for number 3, I should have 7 minus 2 for my change in x, 0 minus negative 5 for my change in y, to get 5 squared plus 5 squared, which is 25, the square root of 25 plus 25. Please be careful over here, okay? Do not be tempted to take the square root of 25 and say that's 5. The square root of the second 25 is also 5, and then add them together. Make sure you simplify under the square root first to get 50, and then you'll notice you can't actually take the square root of that, so we keep it as a square root of 50. For number 4, okay, I put 0 minus 6 squared plus 5 minus negative 3 squared. Just a little note here, you don't have to put the change in x first. You can always put the change in y first. It's not a big deal, you'll get the same answer. Okay, so we have negative 6 squared plus 8 squared, and then 36 plus 64 to get the square root of 100, which also gives you 10. Now, if you want, you can jump from this step to this step. okay, and then here, and then here. You can skip this middle step if you want to, but for some people it might help with organization. Okay, so if you made any mistakes with number 3 and 4, please find your mistake. It might be that little negative, it might be how you squared it, or bed mass, or something like that. Make that correction, pause the video, and try number 5 and 6 without making that mistake. If you got them right, do number 5 and 6, check your work, and we'll call it a day. Okay, so for number 5, I got 5 as my final answer. Okay, again, just be careful right here with the double negatives. And in this case, so -5 minus -9 is +4. -5 minus -2 is -3. When I square them, I get 16 and 9. And that's how I got the square root of 25, which is 5. Okay, if you made a mistake, find that correction. Number 6, just check your work, make sure you got the right answer. You should have had 10. Be careful with those double negatives. Make sure you're mixing the x's and the y's correctly. Don't mix and match x's and y's. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the distance formula. We will be using it later on when we verify properties of shapes.